All right, everyone, welcome to Gilded. And let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing here today before we have our introduce the first artist. So, um, so we have two presenters today, and what you'll hear from them. Let me go back some. Um, well, actually, let me quick introduce the team, and then we definitely want to thank Weinberger Art and our other sponsors. Then a little bit about the format. So our first presenter will present for about 6 to um, 12 minutes, and then the audience will ask questions. And then and it'll be all about growing the business. Then we'll have the second entrepreneur present, and then we'll repeat it all again. So let me introduce our first artist. So Madeline Brice has published and exhibited art nationally. This year she'll be doing a residency in Spain. She has been featured in Sotheby Institute magazine. She is the director and associate curator of this wonderful gallery we are in called Weinberger, and she is co-creator of Curiouser and Curiouser. So, and I'm excited to hear more about that organization. So let's welcome Madeline.
Thank you. So I guess we'll just dive right into it. So I currently work as the director and associate curator of Weinberger Fine Art, which is the establishment that we're in. I also work as a practicing artist with a studio practice I've had for about 12 years now. And I also work as a co-curator of an artist-run space called Curiouser in Kansas City, Kansas. And we've been around for about 2 years now as well. Some of my curatorial experience, one of the shows that I'm really proud of after I first took on the directorship at Weinberger Fine Art was a show called The Life You've Seen, which brought together 35 women and non-binary artists in the Kansas City, greater Kansas City area for a show that filled our 5,000 square foot gallery space, and it was really incredible. The turnout was incredible, and it was really passionate, like a passion project for me because obviously I'm passionate about the arts, and it was really cool to curate a show of this size and to bring this many artists together. And I thought it was really beautiful. And then I also co-curate a space called Curiouser in Kansas City, Kansas. And most recently we curated a show in Port Chester, New York at another artist-run space called Ice Cream Social. And that is a huge gallery space. It's about, I think it's like roughly 7,000 square feet or something like that. And they also have studio spaces as well. And we brought 10 artists from the Kansas City community to Port Chester, New York for this exhibition that is currently on view, and it runs through April 1st. I guess back to my studio practice. I'm primarily a painter first and foremost, but I kind of dabble in a bunch of different mediums. Most recently, I've been doing like oil and acrylic on aluminum, which has been a really fun process to learn. I've really challenged myself with mediums that I use, and not painting on the typical canvas or panel or something like that. So these are some works I've made in the last year. They've been exhibited at a gallery in Springfield, Missouri, and a couple of online exhibitions as well. Let's see, just some more examples of work. This is kind of two examples of some more like non-representational work that I am kind of focusing on. For as long as I can remember, I've kind of always had representational work, dealt with a figure, and I'm feeling a huge pull towards separating myself from that. And both of these pieces were actually inspired by Linda Lighton. She has these, she calls them kind of like trash sculptures, but she has these porcelain sculptures, and there's like gas pumps and lipsticks and bullets and things like that. And I get to work closely with her as a director at Weinberger. So anytime I visit her studio, I'm taking pictures of her sculptures, and they've inspired a few pieces, including these two. These are some older pieces that I made in like 2020, 2021, kind of exemplifying some figurative work that I've made. I paint a lot of self-portraiture, and I also paint a lot of like my people I'm in relationships with and significant others, and close interpersonal relationships. And you'll often see that like my best friend and my sister and my partner are common figures in my work. Okay, so that's my practice. Oh, here's a few more pieces. Sorry, I thought that I only had 3 slides. A few more examples of some work. You'll see that my work is kind of surreal in nature and distorted as well. My work focuses on perception and how everyone's reality is different based on your perception. And so I sort of try to visually represent my own unique perception, my own unique reality. Okay, so I think the main focus of this talk is to focus on goals and needs and challenges and all of that. So a couple of my goals moving forward is I'm interested in seeking representation outside of the Midwest. I currently have a gallery that I work with in Springfield, Missouri, which is where I'm from. And I'm really interested in hitting coastal markets is where I'd like to head next. It was really exciting to work with the gallery in New York because I think that opened a whole new networking opportunity for me. And then I recently just finalized a show that I'll be participating in LA at the end of the year. So I'm really excited for the networking opportunities that might arise from those. So I'm hoping to find representation coastally and outside of the US. And, of course, find my specific target audience for my work, interested buyers, things like that. And, going hand in hand with that, interested in increasing income and funding for larger projects. So some challenges, they kind of are the same. They go hand in hand with the goals, of course, is finding that target audience and how do you meet those people. How do you find the people that are interested in your work other than on social media and like Artsy and things like that? How do you meet those people who really want to support your work? And of course, funding the actual making of the work. It's expensive to have a studio, it's expensive to buy materials, and so how do you fund those things? And increase sales to fund those. And then again, with the goals exhibiting outside of the Midwest, this year has been a huge milestone for me, getting that residency in Spain, getting my first substantial grant and showing in New York and LA as well is really exciting prospect for me. So challenges has been finding those galleries that I can work with. Needs with my practice. It goes again hand in hand with funding, but finding the funding to pay for proper documentation of my exhibitions and of my work so that I can in turn have good documentation for applications for grants and for exhibitions. Grant writing feedback. There are a lot of grant writing programs in the city, but being able to attend those and getting personalized one-on-one feedback is a little bit harder. And then I would say expanding my network is another need that I have. Working in this role at Weinberger Fine Art has really helped me expand my network, but I'm interested in going even bigger and meeting some more people who can change my life and vice versa. So those are my needs. And yeah, I don't know if I talk too fast, but
No, that's terrific. I mean, more time for questions. So
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
of course.
Woohoo. All right. Does anyone like to dive in for questions? Okay, great.
You don't have to give me your microphone since I have a mask on.
Well, it helps though
Well,
for
no, I
Facebook.
have a sinus infection.
Oh.
That's why I have
Okay.
a mask on. I can talk loud. So what immediately comes to mind with your work is that I totally see it launching big in a European market. I really do. I think you going to Spain and making contacts in Spain is going to help make gallery contacts there. But I also can see your work in a major art fair setting.
Yeah.
Like at Frieze or, Art Basel. And, if at some point you could even just attend one of those art fairs or just to walk and see which galleries are exhibiting and who you could target. I just can totally see your work in that environment.
Well, I appreciate that. I would love to have my work in fairs and, abroad especially. And I guess it's just, these larger galleries who are able to afford to attend those fairs, it's way harder to penetrate their market.
I was just wondering if, as just like an attendee,
Yeah.
you could go and just and then plot out a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Figure
Definitely.
out who you might target.
Yeah.
Because I could totally see that, especially with this residency coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just going to broaden everything for you.
I really do hope so. I'm excited for the contacts I'll make and, hopefully lifelong relationships that I can create. It's really exciting prospect.
Have you talked with others who've done this residency?
I actually haven't. This is it's the first time that this iteration of this residency will be happening. It used to be called Menorca Pulsar, which is kind of a different, it was a different plan for the residency. And this is the first residency of its style since it's rebranded.
Uh-huh.
So I haven't been able to talk to anyone who's attended.
Okay. But others who've had Linda Lighton, who's been through Linda Lighton residencies?
I haven't. Mm-mm.
Okay. I think that's good. I know we've had a few present and they said, the networking is rich. So I would go in with some goals. Find out about other residencies, find out about galleries, even galleries in the U.S. that some of these artists have done work on, and where that residency is known at, what galleries is that residency known at, and because that's already the door partially open for you.
Yeah,
so
that's a good idea.
Yeah, and it could be this particular residency Spain, or this particular venue in Spain, but also Linda Lighton's program.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay. Other questions?
How do you balance curating and making artwork? Do they feed each other or do they exhaust each other? Both? I'm just curious about how that works for you.
I think it's kind of a give and take. They do, for the most part, feed each other. I think because I am a practicing artist, that it kind of doesn't necessarily give me a leg up. That's not the right terminology, but it allows me a different way to interact with artists. So I can exchange studio visits as an artist, not as a curator, and that feels a little bit more special to me than somebody who's interested in just exhibiting your work, if that makes sense. So I feel I create relationships with other artists as an artist, and then if I'm interested in a curatorial project with their work, then that comes after. So I think that it kind of feeds. I think it feeds it more than it takes away from. And the way I balance that is I dedicate a specific amount of hours every week just to my practice, and I separate it from my work.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Madeline.
Hi, Carrie.
Any advice for how you find these opportunities that are specific to you? Because obviously, it's easy to Google artist opportunities, but it seems that you are able to find and really take advantage of areas in which the spotlight goes on Madeline, which that's beautiful. How would you advise us to recreate that for ourselves?
Well, I would say that it is difficult. You're right. Something that's really helped me is that I have tab groups open on my laptop of specifically grant and funding opportunities that I am eligible for as an applicant. And then I have a separate tab group of exhibitions that I am eligible for. And then I keep on my Google Calendar application dates for every single thing. And then sometimes I miss them because, life gets in the way, but that's really helped me find new opportunities. I'm usually always scouring the internet, and anything on Instagram, whatever I think I could apply for, I do. And that means that 99% of everything is a no, it's a rejection. But then there's always that 1% you get back and you're oh, that's a cool opportunity, I'll take it. So I think something that's really helped me is just applying for it, even if you think you won't get it. I always assume the answer is no, and then sometimes it's yes. So I guess like there are so many different sources out there though for these like exhibitions or grants, and I wish I could list them off the top of my head, but I could compile a list and share that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Of course.
Other questions we have? Can you go back to one of your earlier slides?
Yeah, like of my work.
No, yeah.
Oh, okay.
One of these. So what kind of grants have you gotten so far?
Well, I have received a Charlotte Street Rocket grant early in the pandemic. And then I also received the Lighton Exchange Program grant, which is funding my entire residency in Spain.
And then do you have any advice for the Charlotte residency program and getting into that grant?
Well, I don't actually. At the time, I think the rocket grants were mainly for like COVID-related relief for artists. So, you know, I was unemployed at the time when I applied for it and was really in need of financing. And so I think that definitely helped in getting it. But in terms of like other Charlotte Street opportunities, you know, in talking with Amy and everything and everyone who works there, the main thing is to just keep applying. Like a lot of artists don't get it the first time they apply, and then it's noticing that you're still interested and continuing to apply. I think that really shows them that you are a dedicated artist and that, you know, maybe you're somebody to consider for this grant and for residencies and things like that.
Yeah. And to just, and I think that helps, you know, yeah, definitely the residencies, because I know when I was on the panel for Studio Inc.,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we noticed some artists who were on the verge of being at Studios Inc. They just wanted a little bit more body to their work, a little bit more exposure, and at a couple more galleries, and then that put them into the group that they would pick for
Gotcha.
the Studio Inc. program.
Mm-hmm.
So it does work to reapply and show the most recent work you've done. We have a question here.
Well, so one of my thoughts I had, you were learning, you talk about funding supplies.
Mm-hmm.
Where you have your studio, it's in the Wholesome building, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, you guys do open studios.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if just instead of doing open studios for the whole building, that it's actually a whole building open studios with a fee for people to visit artist studios, a small fee, as a contribution as a group towards supplies for the artists who work there.
Yeah.
So it's not just open studios, but it's open studios with a purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about a big fee.
Yeah, it's
But
like
what if
$5
the
or
whole
something.
building had, you know, a door entry like you get in a nightclub, and you pay $20,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's all split up amongst the artists who had their studios open
Yeah.
for that evening, and it's just like a one-time thing to help fund supplies for artists, and you market it that way for the whole building. And it's a draw for people because they're seeing multiple artists at one time, and they're feeling good because they're giving back, because it's actually, you're not just like popping into somebody's studio,
Right.
or bring us some supplies with you and donate them to your favorite artist, or whatever they want to do. But it's more of a patron event than just an open studios.
I like that. I'll propose that and see if there's any like pushback against that from other artists. But that is a good idea. Yeah.
Because it takes out of your time to have open studios, and it's a lot of work to clean up your studio when you're working on stuff, and this way it's a way for people, oh, I can give back, I can give something to the artists that have their spaces open.
Yeah.
And you just all split the proceeds.
Yeah. And something that does happen at Wholesome too, which is really great, is there's like a free pile that artists, like there's things, materials you're not using, you can just throw them in the free pile, and almost everything gets taken by somebody else. It's really cool. So that's a really nice like exchange of supplies. But yeah, I mean, obviously we all know as artists that materials are so expensive, and And yeah, so any way to alleviate that is a great idea in my opinion.
Yeah, and you can present a couple different options, do the fee or do donation boxes at various places, especially by food or entry and exit. And as well as introduce the possibility of a fee and just see how the group feels about either of those.
Okay.
And definitely if you do the fee, just pair along donation boxes as well.
Yeah.
So, okay. Other questions we have? I like too how you have a free pile as well. So
Yeah, it's really cool. And I feel like everyone, at least that I've interacted with at Wholesome, is really open and, shares their space. And it's been really nice. I feel like just already in the short time I've been there, I've met so many cool artists and growing my network. So, yeah.
And then can you go to another, either your goals or your challenges? Okay. So when you go to these, now you've already had your show in New York, haven't you?
Yeah, it's currently on
And
view.
it had your piece, were you curating and had your pieces as well?
Yeah.
And then did you get a sense or did you ask where some of the other artists have shown within New York that have shown at that gallery?
No, actually.
Yeah, so that might be.
It's a fairly new gallery,
Yeah.
and we are the first, they were under construction, and we are the first show to happen in that space. But I will reach out to their director and see if she has any other ideas and places to reach out to.
Yeah, so that way you get a sense of, and it could be in New York or just other galleries that they've shown at across the nation of those artists, because there's a possibility then there's already intrigue existing within your work.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Good idea.
Yeah. And then let me see. Other questions? Do we have any questions online? Okay. So let's go to your goals slide. Yeah. And again, when you do your studio residency, ask that same question. I would ask Linda, and who's Linda's assistant now? Does she have an assistant?
Courtney is the one actually heading the
good.
Linda Lighton Exchange Program.
Yeah, I would, and they both, Courtney's been with the program forever as well. So you could get a sense of, okay, if there's someone you can talk to before you go to it, and especially someone they felt networked well, they might have some good advice for you. I know, I think Miguel's been a part of it, and he's a wonderful networker. He's also very, he's more than willing to share, having been being a professor and all.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, yeah. Let me see. Then, and have you tried for an Arts KC grant?
Yes, I have two pending applications actually for one's for the Inspiration Grant and one for the Puffin Foundation as well. I have a large scale project that I'm kind of what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I'm working on, and I've applied for 2 grants to sort of fund that, and I'm excited to start working on that project if the grants are received. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know anybody at Artists Inc. or who had been at Artists Inc. as far as worked in the administration and found out, knew about, because they do a lot of posting of their residencies and grants and such. And
I do know a few people there, but I haven't worked with them explicitly.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they have some insight as to what has been most successful. Of course, what Escaped to Create is in Florida, but it's a local couple that sponsors that grant.
Okay.
Well, they're part of a group that sponsors that grant. The majority are within residencies of Florida, and they at times are too. So that I'm sure that is a popular grant that people participate in here and get a chance to do residency down in Florida.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll look into
So
that.
I think that's worth looking into when the deadline's for that.
Okay. Definitely.
Does anybody know about any other residencies or such? We have Linda Lighton. We have Escape to to create. We have Arts KC, Charlotte Street.
I mean, another good resource is Pushing the Flywheel, which I think Mid America Arts Alliance, they push or Artist Inc.
Artist
they push
Inc.,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So I'm always getting that newsletter and just seeing what I'm eligible for. And, you know, like being somebody who works full time and has a practice, we can't always get away for like months at a time. So I'm personally focusing on like month-long, 2-week-long residencies because that's more feasible. And I think for most people it is, unless you're like a full-time artist. So.
Yeah. And I think the Escape to Create is just a couple weeks. It's not a couple months, but
yeah.
And then, the UMKC professor, Hugh Singh, I'm sorry, but yeah, she's been very good at getting residencies. I'll have to refer you, but to her, and maybe you can get some insights from her.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we have time for one more question. Any burning question? All right. Let me see. Is there anything in particular you wanted to get feedback on from this group?
No, I mean, I feel like we covered everything, like just asking those questions, you know, with you know, new people that you meet and making those connections might open doors for you. So I feel like we covered all of the bases.
Yeah. And two, when you go to LA, when you have work in LA, you know, feel free to use Facebook and do a $20 ad on your artwork being in LA, and see who clicks it, who likes it, and maybe get a sense of, especially I would share it with other galleries in LA, that particular ad, because knowing that you're actually going to be at that space and they see an ad on it, maybe a different way to kind of network with them than just sending your credentials via email.
Yeah.
And so,
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right, then. Well,
Great.
thank you very much. And yeah, appreciate it. Okay. Okay, let me get my sheet here on Lily. So I'm excited. These are both great artists that are associated with Weinberger. And we're excited to have them today because, I mean, this gallery is stunning and their work is stunning. So it's nice to see the artists behind the work. So Lily Mueller is represented by Weinberger Fine Art and has exhibited at notable galleries, including Jackson Junge Gallery in Chicago. She has been on the covers of Kansas City Magazine and Herlife. Let's welcome Lily.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lily Mueller, and I am a Kansas City-based artist, born and raised. And I'm just going to be sharing a little bit about my practice today. All right. So, well, to start off, this is the quilt that I made and some pillows alongside some furniture, but we'll get more into that. So, I received my, am I in the way? Okay, no. I received my BFA in fiber at the Kansas City Art Institute in 2020. And I took the quilting elective with Kim Eichler-Messmer when I was a junior in college, and I just really fell in love with the process of quilting and just putting together shape and creating composition with color. And I really loved being able to use my own hand-dyed fabrics for this process. So after graduating, which, yeah, I can't believe it's already almost been 3 years, blows my mind. But after graduating, I've just really been focusing on quilting and my career as an artist and what inspires me. I'm really interested in psychedelic art, mid-century modern design, architecture. I'm inspired by childhood memories and my Latin heritage as well. So all of these concepts kind of, or not kind of, they do feed into my work. All right, so a bit about my process and production. I usually always start with drawing my quilt designs. Sometimes I just work intuitively with the fabric, but typically I draw the designs and I start on paper and then I move to Procreate. I find that Procreate's really helpful, especially with commission work. It's really convenient for a client to just be able to see exactly what they're going to get, or very close. I try to get it as close as possible. This is my latest example of a current work that I am working on. So once I've kind of finalized the design, I move into hand dyeing my fabrics, and I use all plant-based fibers, unless I find something that scraps every now and then I like to use, or find that it works well for whatever project I'm working on. So yeah, after hand dyeing fabrics, I piece together everything, and that really just, creates the composition. So that's the top part of the quilt there in the corner. But yeah, I finalized the work by quilting it, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the term quilt, but it is not just a blanket. If you didn't know, you might already know this, but a quilt technically is consisted of 3 layers being sewn together. So the bottom layer, the batting, and then the top layer, which is what I focus on. All right, so selling my work. I typically charge by the square foot. Sometimes I find that this can be a little bit tricky because every quilt is different. So I might be making a quilt where the piecing is a lot more complicated, or I'm using a lot more valuable fabrics. So sometimes that is a little bit tricky, and I'm still trying to navigate that. I also think that having a consistent social media presence helps sell my work. I think it's also a good way to just keep me accountable as an artist, to just see what I'm working on and just constantly have that. And I also recently just sought out representation with Weinberger Fine Art, and this is my first gallery that I am being represented by, and that has already opened so many new doors and networking things for me. It's really been wonderful. So I also think it's really important to share the entire process of making a quilt. I find that people are always asking me, how did you do that? That seems wild. I don't understand, So I think that maybe like posting short reels or TikToks or any kind of short video that people can easily access is a great way for them to relate to the work, or kind of understand it a little bit more and connect with it. I also really encourage people to see the work in person, especially since it's textile work. I feel as though it's just so different on the screen. It's great. Social media is great exposure, don't get me wrong, but I really think it's so much different in person, and just seeing the texture and the sheen of fabrics together really just shows off the work. All right, so some of my challenges. So consistency and promotion on social media. I know I'm talking about social media and how it's been great and everything, but I have a really hard time stopping myself in the process of making a quilt and just slowing down and being like, okay, maybe you should share this part of the process that you're doing right now. Instead, my mind just like wants to stay focused on making the work and doesn't want to think about that, or I'll make excuses up that I don't have enough time, but I really do think that I need to do that, and it's a challenge. Also, consistent income, and I know a lot of artists struggle with this, most in fact, but it is just difficult to fund supplies and future projects, just not having consistent income. So that's something that I'm really striving to work for, because this is my passion and it's what I want to do with my life. So also financing. I am very new to any kind of self-employment or entrepreneurship, and needing some help with that, as well as a studio space. I am currently working out of my parents' basement, and I'm very grateful that they have provided me with that space. However, for a list of reasons, it's not the most convenient. One of them being documenting my work. The space is mostly, it's not committed to just my work, so it's kind of hard to not get other things and other business in the shot. But yeah. All right, so some of my goals that I am working towards. I would really love to obtain the $10,000 Charlotte Street Visual Artist Award. I have applied for this a couple of times. The first time I made it to the final round, and that was really promising and really encouraging for me as an artist, especially just coming out of school. But I think that Charlotte Street is just a wonderful program and opens so many new doors for networking, and I would love to have that money to contribute to larger works, but I will just keep applying. That is the plan. Also, obtaining representation by other well-known galleries in the United States. Like I said before, this is my very first representation. So I am currently trying to look or keep an eye out for other galleries around the United States where my work might fit into. I would also love to be completely self-employed as an artist, and I feel like day by day I'm just working towards that as my goal. I just keep telling myself just to make the work and make what I want to make and what I'm passionate about, and that the people that love it will follow eventually. Maybe it's a little optimistic, but also I really strive to make larger scale work for bigger spaces. I find that this is it's the kind of work I want to make. I get really maximalist with my work sometimes, and I just feel that it functions better on a larger scale and would love to pursue that. But since I do not have a consistent income, it is really difficult to fund larger works. So, all right, so my needs. Budgeting for supplies, which goes into consistent income. Definitely a better studio space. I kind of said that before, but yeah, I did apply to the Charlotte Street, or the open call for the studio spaces at Charlotte Street. So I'm hoping to hear back about that. I also really need a new sewing machine. I have had the same sewing machine for like 8 years now, and I've just really been like working it, pushing it to its limit, and like she is my best friend. I love my sewing machine, but she's tired. Yeah. All right, and that is a little bit about me and my practice. Here's a link to my website and my Instagram, and thank you so much.
Thank you for that intimate look. I love, and I especially the process I think is interesting to me, being a painter myself, and I've always loved ceramics and quilts because it's just beyond what I normally do myself. So I have great respect. Well, great. Do we have any questions to start off with? Here we go.
Well, I just wanted to say about your work. I love so many aspects about it. One, I think it's joyful. Two, I think it's so vibrant and architectural. Clearly, you have a beautiful eye for fashion, history, the 70s, the 60s, that whole aesthetic, and how you bring it into your unique perspective is just beautiful.
Thank you.
I hope Charlotte Street comes through with a studio space for you, because I think that would be an ideal setting for you to create in. And I'm wondering about your sewing machine, in that, have you talked to Rightfully Sewn?
I have not, actually.
Okay.
I've not thought about that at all.
I don't know how frequently they change out their machines, or where they get the grants where their machines are supplied, since they're a nonprofit and they're teaching people how to sew. But I'm wondering if they might be someone who would be interested in helping you investigate a new, bigger machine, since that's what they specialize in on a larger scale for the fashion industry.
That is a great suggestion. Actually, I had a friend working for them, and I remember she would just tell me about these machines, and I just would fantasize about it. I'm like,
Yeah,
that
so
sounds
was what
like
came
a
to mind
dream.
when you were talking about your machine. I was like, well, I was wondering how they do it, and like where they get it, and maybe they have an inn or something.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you. I wouldn't have thought
Yeah,
about
there's the sewing lab too, and these organizations start within a couple of years of each other, but they have a huge following. They both get wonderful sponsorship, so they do have some great equipment. So I would investigate both those. I know when I was posting some of your images, they were liking those. So I think you're on their radar, and a lot of people are. And you know, I love quilting because they not only introduce it's considered a craft as well as a fine art. So you have you can possibly have double your following of fine art in quilters, and and yeah, there's just so much opportunity within that market.
Yeah.
So, other questions we have?
Well, I was just thinking of grants, like specifically for fiber artists too, because I'm sure there's grants out there just mainly for fiber art. And I don't know if there's a specific foundation that funds fiber artists or not, or even Nick Cave, since he's maybe he has a grant out for fiber artists. A lot of times when artists get to that level, they will sponsor someone. So he's from Kansas City, so that came to mind too.
Yeah, and he has a lot of close ties still here. Kim might be a good one to talk to in reaching him. And I do know someone as well. If Kim, I think Kim would be a better person to do so, but I could possibly introduce you to a friend who went to school with him and used to have a gallery here in town. But
cool.
Yeah, here we go. Another question.
Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations on your install at the airport. That's huge.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Secondly, actually, I didn't have a question. It was when you were sharing about your challenges on social media. I feel like the exact same way. Sometimes just breaking up that process to film is so frustrating. But I have found that sometimes skipping the whole middle part and just focusing on a really cool transition, you can just start yourself filming with just, I don't know, let's say thread, and then a really cool transition. Then you just show the final piece. It puts it allows you to do some of that thinking after you finish your piece, and really you don't have to putz with like editing and all that stuff too. Just come up with a nifty transition, and that's at least filled a gap for me sometimes when I just don't take the time to set up the tripod and get the rig out so that everything's a vertical view and all that stuff. Just a pointer if you.
Yeah, no, that is a wonderful suggestion. Actually, it's very helpful to hear somebody else suggest that, because I think about that and I'm like, oh, that's not good enough. It's not worth it. But I don't think that when I see other people posting that. So You're right. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and then too, I save all my photos. So I take photos during the process, but I don't post them. And then I make a running slideshow of them, and post that on social media. And so if you don't want to interrupt your process, that's a good way. You can record it and then save it for later. I do it actually after the project's finished. So then I post the slideshows, and then I post the final piece. So I paste those a few days apart. So.
Yeah, that's great. I did do that on TikTok. I made like a little reel of just a bunch of photos, because I was like, I just have all this documentation and I don't really know how to post on TikTok. I'm just gonna try it. Screw it, whatever. And yeah, I thought, it's a start. Definitely, it's good. Yeah.
Here we have a question over here.
Not really a question either, but I know one of your, if you want to go back to your I think it was needs maybe, or goals maybe. Yeah. In regards to making larger scale work and kind of maybe not having the space for it, I know that as the director at Weinberger Fine Art, I'm always looking at requests for proposals or requests for qualifications for larger projects around the city. And I'm always looking at them for any of our artists who might fit those descriptions. But so that's something that you could keep on your radar too. And because there are a lot of like, 1% for art initiatives that call for like large scale work. And if you feel like you have an idea for something that could fit that proposal, then that might be something worth looking at. And they usually have a pretty substantial budget, which would probably fund a studio space to make it and, any supply cost and some. So that's something to look at as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. After the airport commission,
Yeah.
I was thinking that I was like, I think this is the direction that I really want to head in. And also big thank you to you for
course.
making that happen for me. So
Cool.
And I was going to mention to both of you, have either of you applied to Art in the Loop?
no, I haven't.
Okay, so
know
that's,
if you have.
and I believe they do a call at the beginning of January each year, but that exposes you to a huge audience. I mean, they do multidisciplinary artists, and it's a good way too. You can see your artwork on buses, which Ada did. You can see your artwork at bus stops. So, and then I forget the name of the artist, but she's down in Columbus Park, and she's a photographer and painter, but she would use Avenue of the Arts to do sculpture. So that was her first time doing sculpture, and so it's a way to break out. It's good exposure. They reach people who've never walked into galleries before. So good networking and a good way to, there's lots of opportunity there. So they do a huge networking event beforehand. Have you been to that?
Well, I had a
Yeah.
street art shelter. So I was in Art in the Loop in 2021, and it was a great experience. And my streetcar shelter was right down at 19th and Main. So that was awesome. And they do have definitely great, they promote your work. They have an art walk. So they take a group through to every streetcar shelter. And so it's a great opportunity. And then you can apply for the streetcar itself. And then the call just closed for this year. And this year they're doing an art, like a big art wall in addition to the, and a 3D opportunity this year. But if you do 3D, I believe you have to have your project in mind ahead of time, because you have to be ready to install it pretty quickly.
So somewhat of a proposal for them, or yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like almost kind of on the sculpture end, it's almost ready to go, if it's a sculpture.
And then for like Ada and you, did you guys have to tweak a specific piece you already did, or make a piece specific for that?
When I applied, it was a theme of resilience, and so I did a large-scale graffiti botanical mural for that call specifically. So when the call came out, I specifically made artwork for that theme for that year. So, I did it completely digitally, so it was ready to size for the streetcar shelter.
Okay, great. And I was there's some advice I wanted to give you, but Paul Taylor gave you some advice when you presented, Robin. Do you remember what that is about the video and the pricing of your art?
Well, about the pricing of art, yeah, I don't know. Paul had talked to me, Paul Tyler, yeah, and he's given me a lot of good advice over time. And I think one of the things that he told me to price it higher. And then I've had people, and that's a real challenge for me because, and I understand what Paul was saying, price it higher, I understand that. Yeah. And then I would say people price it lower, and I feel like that's a real challenge because I have never felt like I got to that good balance point. Does that make sense?
Like good balance to where your work
Where
is
you're-
selling at a good rate?
where you've got the balance point where you have a balance of a high enough price that you can make money and not lose money on the piece,
Yeah,
and yet
totally.
still sell. And so that's still a real challenge. But what Paul Tyler was telling me was charge more. So I would say don't be afraid to do that. Would be, yeah. I would not be afraid to do that at all. But finding that balance point is, can be a real challenge.
To your point, but working with Lily, we, as the gallery that represents her and all of our artists, we work to actively increase the value of their work as time goes on. So, we're working with everyone and especially Lily to get to that point where her work does consistently sell and it's worthwhile for you to make the work and for everyone. Yeah.
I was really impressed how fast you made it happen. I'm like, oh, the first day. That's really exciting.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then what Paul also said was, make a video of your process, what you're doing, because one of the reasons, he felt, the video should educate the patron on the process, as well as her piece had a, she works in wax and caustic, so we're talking about decades or centuries even that the work can last.
Yeah. And the thing, I've had videos of my process. I'm a very process-driven artist. And while I don't just do encaustic, I do like to document my process. And in the studio, I have a friend or my sister come over, because a lot of times I will do what I call a big pour, where I've got a big panel that's 36 by 36, and I work in different layers, and so I'm pouring a whole bunch of hot wax. Well, that's pretty cool to watch,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you fire it up and fire up the torch, and so usually I have my sister or some friend or somebody that just comes over. It doesn't have to be the entire thing, but just to get
Just a
the
snippet
idea,
of it.
a snippet of it, and yeah.
I'll often baby document things, just kind of document it for myself, but I'm like, this isn't good enough for anybody else to see.
Well, yeah. So, don't worry about that. Yeah. I see, you see a lot of
get out of that mindset.
Yeah, you see a lot of
Yeah.
rough videos on Instagram and such. But one thing I was going to add, oh yeah. So I love how you have photos of your feet and everything. And she color codes her shoes to match the piece. And I think those are even marketable. They could even sell as prints. But don't be afraid to show your face. You're very photogenic. So even when you're
Thank you.
So having someone come over and shoot your process I think is great. Jane Booth sells a lot of her work, and she does these great videos of her doing her process. She just sets up a camera. She brings someone in actually, and so she works on a piece for several hours, and they film the whole process and speed it up. But advertising, they have people in the advertising shots because people sell. Their faces sell. Eyes, human eyes attract human eyes. Yeah. So it's good to also humanize your work as well. Not only show the process, but show you in the process.
Totally. Yeah, that's actually my mom's foot. in that. She was trying to take pictures of me holding it with my foot showing, but it just wasn't working. And I was like, you hold it. But yeah, I don't know how that came about. It was actually during the pandemic. I was documenting for my very last piece that I was making in college, and I was at home in Fairway and was just like, I don't have any good walls to hang this up on. Like, I gotta really figure this out. So we just went outside and did it. It was fun. I'm glad you like it.
Again, and the green against the orange, and I think it works.
Yeah, that
great.
worked out. Oddly enough.
Yeah.
I think it's also really captivating to, like, this is such a captivating image because it's like art in an unorthodox place. Like, you wouldn't install your quilt outside permanently. You know what I mean? So I think that's what makes it such like a captivating image. And I do that too. Like, I did a series of works I installed on dumpsters because I'm like, this is not where fine art goes, but I really liked the juxtaposition. And so, like, I don't know, I think maybe thinking of unique places to show off your pieces could be really cool too. And just taking videos of that. And I don't know, because I agree, the process is really hard to film, especially when usually as artists in the middle, you're like, this is all shit. And then you finally get to the end and you're like, oh, okay, this is good. And so maybe if the end product is what you're really like excited about, then maybe find new ways to just show that off.
Yeah. That's a great way to think about it.
I have a friend, Megan Wyeth is another. She does scarves and works with fiber. She takes gorgeous photos outside with her scarves in the trees, using the tree trunks as to hang it up, or, she makes very good use of her landscape in selling her works. They're gorgeous photos.
I like tree trunks. That's good. I like that idea. It's cool.
Yeah. But Megan Wyeth is her.
Awesome. Yeah, I will look her up.
And then we have a question online.
Which I have to get back over to the computer. Jaron Robinson, who is the founder of Wine Colors Art Plus Sip, asked the question, have you ever thought about teaching your art style? And if so, he would love to talk to you.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Cool. I've been asked about that before. I don't know. I don't know that I would make the best teacher. Like, that might help. That might, break the ice.
They have a process, so the wine and sip on teaching, and then also the sewing labs and rightfully sewn have classes too. So that's a way to introduce your work to some really religious quilters and expose, and they'll network as well.
I'm scared they'll judge my craft.
Yeah. So when I had Kim EM in your college professor.
I love Kim.
She there was a quilting crew that showed up that's a big fan of her work, and they're a big fan of each other too. So that's just as you have your fine arts friends, I would develop a circle of quilting friends, and again through these organizations that center upon that. But and I wanted to say too, Kim EM had just sold a pattern to Pottery Barn, and she was looking to sell more. And there's a video I can share you of Benzi Garraza talking about how he licensed his work, and and he was trying to get more into fabrics. He'd done a lot of print from anywhere from the National Gallery for their gift shops, and also for Kleenexes for their Kleenex boxes. But he was getting
that's cool.
Yeah. But he was getting into carpets. He wanted to do, and he actually had done some fine art carpets, but he wanted to get into hotels too, because his whole thing was there's two different ways you can get paid for licensing. You can get paid up front, or you can get residual checks, every time it's used. And he wanted to get in hotels and get, keep those residual checks coming, which is a good, stability income. It's not consistent, but it's one of those things that make money from your art while you sleep. So, and then,
that's nice.
Yeah. And two, I would even recommend, finding an avenue outside the arts, like when COVID happened and such, it really helped me having a W-2 job. And then, but also just having, real estate financing, investments, again, licensing. I think it's one of the more natural ones for artists to come by.
Yeah, I work a retail job right now. I work at Free People on the plaza, and I really love my coworkers, and it's like a fun little time and good for me to have that income because I need it. But yeah, it's also like a nice break. I really enjoy the break from working in the studio and then just going to work and like kind of having my social time there and then just going home.
Good. Other questions? We probably have time for one more question, and actually we don't, but we'll take one more. Or is that it then? Okay, well, great, Lily.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and you're welcome to stay in network afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let me just wrap up a little bit. Yeah. So, all right. So we have our annual Friends event, and that's going to be at Studios Inc. We have some great artists, Peregrine, Miguel Rivera, Brian Hicks, and we're still working on a dancer. But so hopefully this advertising will come out this weekend. And then we welcome you to tell your friends about Gilded, donate, and we welcome you to stay in network. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you and helping us grow the arts in Kansas City and beyond. So.